daisies. There was a lady who was coming home from a prayer meeting. And when she got home, she noticed that her back door was open. And so she pushed it open wide. And when she got in there, she saw that she was being robbed. And she said, Acts 2:38. And the man went, oh my gosh. And he ran out of the house. The woman called the police. When she called the police, they went and got him. And the police officer said, look, man, she was an elderly woman. She was little. Why did you run away? He said, listen, she walked in yelling, Acts 2:38. Yeah. All right. So it was a misunderstanding there, but she did get rid of him, which was a good thing, right? I was thinking this morning and last night, I said to Doug, boy, oh boy, there's a movie that I was trying to pull up and we couldn't find it, but I think I've watched it before. And I think these people probably were the ones that were carrying the axe and the 238s. It was a clan of a family that seemed to be in argument all the time. Who do you think I'm talking about? Down in the 1870s, the Hatfields and McCoys had a wee bit of a feud going on. Not a great thing, we think about it, but it really is a historical story of the Hatfields and McCoys having an argument. And really, I'm not really sure what started it. Sometimes we don't know what starts these things. It can be one little small action. But there were a number of things that happened that could have started this feud. One of them, now there's two fellows that are here. It's Devil, if you can imagine, his name's Devil. All right, so there's a problem there right straight away. Devil Ants Hatfield against hold it, that's not it. Jonathan McCoy? Anybody know the name? I'm going to call him Jonathan until it comes into my mind. I just don't think that's his name. Randolph. There you go. Randolph McCoy. You know, just as an aside, if you pause for just a minute and you let your mind go completely blank and don't worry about whether you'll remember it or not, it always comes to you. Usually in the middle of the night when you're going, oh, this is great. Ooh. Anyways, it was Randolph McCoy and it was Devil Axe Hatfield. Anyways, so what happened is that Randolph McCoy's cousin had some land, 5,000 acres. But Devil Axe Hatfield thought, Ants Hatfield thought that he owned that land. So they went to court. And it was Devil Ants that got the land. That started a wee bit of an argument, of course. And a few months later, you have Randolph McCoy goes to Floyd Hatfield's farm. While he's there, he sees a pig. And I guess the McCoys, their pigs, you could tell if it was theirs because of the markings on them. And so Randolph says, that's my pig. And of course, Floyd says, no, it isn't. And guess what they do? Over one pig, they go to court. And there are just many Hatfields as there are McCoys in the courtroom. And so they're arguing back and forth about a pig, if you can imagine. And what they did was they brought Billy Stanton. Billy Stanton is a relative of the Hatfields. And guess what he decided to tell them, right? That pig, that was the Hatfields' pig, not the McCoys. So, of course, this escalated things maybe just a wee bit more. And then what happened 2 months after the pig story, was that Jauncey and Roseanne, so Jauncey is the Hatfield, Roseanne is the McCoy. Yeah, it took me a while to memorize this, my friends. Roseanne's the McCoy. And what happened is, well, Jauncey and Roseanne, they got together. Ended up in a pregnancy, not a good thing. So you can imagine that Randolph, he was not very happy about this at all. And so what Roseanne did is she took off to go live with the Hatfields. While she's with the Hatfields, what do the McCoys do? But they come and take Jauncey away. And they take them back to they take him back to their cabin. So now Devil Ants, he figures that he's going to go to the cabin and get Jauncey back, which he does. Now, just to let you know, that didn't end well. Jauncey did not marry her. They did not get together. Jauncey, I think he had 4 marriages. So, yeah, tells you a wee bit about the lad, eh? On the second piece is that the baby was born, but at a year of age, the baby died of measles. And unfortunately, Roseanne McCoy, she died at the age of 29, disappointed and disheartened. Arguments. Was it the land, the pig, the pregnancy? What could it have been? So many things that we take an affront to, that we get angry about, that we criticize, condemn, compare others. And certainly that's the most popular story that I can think of the feuding that went on in families between them. In 1976, well, it was 1891 that they actually called a close to the feud, but it wasn't until 1976 that they actually did a public shaking of hands to say the feud was over. And in 2003, they actually signed a document saying that it was done. That's quite a number of years, don't you think? To finally sign something that says, or to at least recognize again that the fighting was done. This is Black History Month, and so I got thinking about that as well. One of the churches that I've been a part of is the South Buxton St. Andrew's Church. And they gave me this wee little book that talks about the church and how it began. And it was in 1858 that it was established by William Mackenzie. He actually started this church, William King. I knew I was wrong there. The Reverend William King is who started the church there. Who was going to catch me? Anybody? When we watch this again, you'll know that it's William King, sorry. Anyways, 1958, he came and he started the settlement in Buxton. In Buxton, he started that settlement and the Underground Railroad, and at least 1,000 people in the Underground Railroad made their way to Buxton, just outside of Chatham. Now, there was 9,000 acres that William King bought for $4,000. And the only people to be able to buy those plots of land, which he divided into 50-acre lots, were the people that came from the Underground Railroad. The blacks were able to purchase those, and they were given a long timeline to be able to do that. Now, there was a bell given to St. Andrews, and it's still up in the bell tower today. And when the slaves came across and they found their freedom in Buxton, that bell of freedom was rang out each and every time. And it's still there to this day. It's also in the Buxton National Museum as well. Now, Buxton, where did he come up with that name? Why did he call it the Buxton community? You see, in 1863, that's when Lincoln actually signed the emancipation that the blacks would be free. But that occurred in 1933 in the UK. And that was by Thomas Buxton that did that. And so William King named his community after Thomas Buxton, who was part of the Parliament in the UK, in Britain. And after 20 years, he fought to have the blacks in Britain freed. 20 years. I want to play just a clip from it. And I encourage you actually to watch this. I think we've watched it on Netflix. And people always take license when they do these types of things, but I felt that it was a really good portrayal of what he did. Oh gosh, I hope it goes to the first. La, la. Amazing grace. And Holly actually played the song. So thank you.
What do you want with the road preacher?
I'm here to seek your advice.
Are you contemplating a life of solitude? People like you are too much. Besides, well, there, you have work to do.
But now I see. No one of our age has ever taken power, which is why we're too young to realize that certain things are impossible.
You're the best fighter in the house, and the best speaker. What is this little terrier Springfield?
I believe he's a Yorkshire Terrier, my lord.
One man will risk everything.
Payment in kind.
There's nothing you have I'd want, your grace.
He'd fetch at least 25 guineas.
The game is over.
To speak for those who could not. They do this to let you know that you no longer belong to God, but to a man.
To make the blind see.
We have no evidence that the Africans themselves have any objection to the trade.
And to lead a movement that would change the world.
Do it. Throw their dirty, filthy ships out of the water.
The slave trade has 300 MPs in its pocket. It would be just you against them.
If we were to outlaw the trade tomorrow, this would bring financial disaster.
His enemy is my enemy.
Wilberforce is a rebel.
No matter how loud you shout, you will not drown out the voice of the people!
People!
You still have passion. That matters more.
In Africa, I was a prince, in many ways not unlike you.
I'm going to try again. As your Prime Minister, I urge caution.
And as my friend,
Not to hell with caution.
Remember, God made men equal.
But now I see. Did I write that?
Yes, you did.
Now at last it's true.
Amazing grace.
It's February 23rd. It's already out there. It's not this February 23rd. It's been there a while. A representation of what has happened, but pretty powerful in itself and what it states. At Buxton, we also had, from the Underground Railroad, we also had others that contributed. Of course, we know of Harriet Tubman. And she was just a small mite of a thing, about 5'2", not very big. And because she was born into slavery and she was mistreated and beaten, she was very ill. And at the time that she thought that she was going to be traded away from her family, she escaped. And when she escaped, she had left her husband and she had left her family, left for 1 year. And then she came back, and her sister and her 2 nieces, she took to Canada. She was able to help 70 of the slaves escape. Some of them had some wild numbers of, 700, but we believe that there's about 70, and none of them were recaptured. None of them were injured. They all safely made it to safety. We also know of Josiah Henson. Do you know who Josiah Henson is? I bet some of you can shake your heads. Yes, of course. Pardon? Uncle Tom, that's right. It's at the Uncle Tom's Cabin. And Josiah Henson also helped people to escape. He bought 200 acres in Dawn Township. And in that area, they became independent and they were able to be self-sufficient. And he was the one. And so the story is by Harriet, Beecher Stowe. Harriet Beecher Stowe is the one that wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. Again, probably similar to the movie. It's license of what she's written. And in that day, though, it did bring awareness, though it had some stereotypical elements to it. But it gave some kind of awareness to what was going on with the slaves in the States. She actually met Lincoln, and Lincoln said to her, "So you're the little lady that started this great war." Yeah. Thanks be to God that she actually was writing that book, that she stood up and said, I have been to Uncle Tom's Cabin previously from school, and my hope is that we continue to do that, to share with our families. In the Chatham-Kent library, I came up here with very small print, friends, and no glasses. I'm going to tell you if I can read it. It's Blair Newby is the one that is in this picture. And I don't know if you saw it. It was in where the Flyers, the paper that the Flyers comes in. Her picture is on the front cover, and it talks about, in Chatham-Kent Library, the exhibit in the museum, National Unity Association Fight for Racial Equity from the 1940s and the 1950s. It's all sorts of photos and pictures that were drawn. And so what I want to bring to attention is that I really, I don't speak and know fully what has happened for these people and for all that have been traumatized or made slaves or having these types of problems. I come from my culture and my background as well. And I want to tell you that though we have Buxton and Uncle Tom's Cabin, it does say here that Chatham, Kent is known for its termination of the Underground Railway during the 1800s. Yet by the 1940s and 50s, people of color from the area and across Ontario still weren't granted the same rights to everyone else. Black men and women were denied service in some restaurants and hotels in places like Dresden and Chatham. This was allowed under the law, but the membership of a group called the National Unity Association and others started fighting against it. The Chatham Kent Museum is telling this story with a new exhibition called Let Us March, and that is open, the struggle for racial equality, and it's on display until April 16th at the museum. I probably don't need to stand here and say this to you because I say it all the time, and I know that when we read through the New Testament, the story of Jesus tells us that he did not have bias. Jews and Gentiles of any race, of any color, is what we have been told that he opened to, that he allowed, that he would have meals with. And that is how we are to live, not seeing any distinction, any differences. It's here, it's our hearts are the same, and the flow of the breath and the blood that runs through our bodies. And Paul tells us in Corinthians, unfortunately the Corinthians, they're having a wee bit of a problem, being kind to each other and figuring out really what Jesus said. And so I had read, and he says, I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, the authority of Jesus Christ to live in harmony with each other. Let there be no diversity, no divisions in the church. Remember to be of one mind, united in thought and purpose. For some members were saying that Paul baptized them. Some members were saying, oh, I follow Peter. Some Sharon, some Lillian, some Herb, some I go to the Baptist church. Some 200, what do we say? 217 Christian denominations. But it's not about division. It's not. We may find those different beliefs, but our hope and our faith is in Jesus, who tells us to love one another and not to see that distinction. And this month in particularly, let us continue to remember that. Some of you have become arrogant, thinking, Paul says, I will not visit you again, but I will come, and soon, if the Lord lets me, and then I'll find out whether these arrogant people are just being pretentious speeches or whether they really have God's power. Throughout all of this entire New Testament, I believe, and I believe probably we should get together and chat sometime. Let's talk about the scriptures and go through. But at this time, may we remember the suffering, the challenges, the struggles of other people, and keep that in mind and show great love, great hope, and ask for peace